Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. They say the husband is always the last to know, and in my case, that may or may not have been true. The only thing that was certain was that I actually found out. I didn't learn about this by chance, nor from any of my friends or my wife's enemies. No, I learned this firsthand, so to speak. It was at breakfast after a stormy night, and I was finishing my second cup of coffee when my wife Jennifer said, "Yesterday, Dave invited me to lunch. We ended up in a hotel room and spent most of the afternoon there. I loved it, and will probably do it again." This made me silent for a few seconds. Then I asked, "Why were you close to me last night? Do you like giving me sloppy seconds?" "I didn't give you a single second that I wasn't careful about. I cleaned myself up pretty well when we finished. And yet you came to me just a few hours after you were with him. To me, that means seconds, careful or not. I guess I just felt a little guilty. Oh damn. I don't know what I was thinking. I just felt the need to be with you. I guess I wanted to see if anything had changed. But nothing had changed. I still enjoy being intimate with you." "Being intimate? You just told me you cheated with your boss, and you're gonna do it again. Where's the intimacy in this?" "It was a figure of speech, Mike. Anyway, I'm telling you this to give you time to decide what you want to do, in case you don't want me around anymore." "Why would I want you around if you can tell me this so easily? I need to think about what I want to do, and you need to move into one of the other bedrooms." "That's not necessary, Mike. I just told you that I enjoy being with you." "Maybe so, but I have no idea what other women your boss is sleeping with, and I want to make damn sure you don't give me anything that he could give you. I just hope it's not too late. You could have given me a gift from him last night." Her face went pale when I mentioned other women, clearly implying that she was one of many. Then she said, "He wouldn't do anything that would make him sick. He has to be careful because of his wife." I shook my head in disgust and stood up from the table, getting ready to head to Rodriguez Auto Repair on 8 Mile Road. When I got out of the shower, Jennifer was sitting on the bed. "When I told you about Dave, I was hoping you would say that we need to talk about this." "What is there to talk about? You cheated on me and then casually threw it in my face. If you can be this calm about it, I gotta ask myself if this was the first time for you or just another in a long line. How do I know you were really working all those evenings when you called me and told me you were showing houses late? You said you spent most of the afternoon in the hotel room with Dave, so how do I know you don't spend afternoons in hotel rooms a couple times a week? How do I know Dave's the only one, Jennifer? There's nothing to talk about." "Well, that's not entirely true. We need to decide how to tell Ashley and Brandon, and of course there's your family and mine. We'll have to let them all know, and we'll most likely have to explain to them why, 'cause I don't want everyone to think it's my fault. Everyone should know that I'm not the one who ruined our marriage. It doesn't have to be like that, Mike. I love you, and other than yesterday with Dave, I have never cheated on you. Yesterday it just happened, it was spontaneous. I did it just like that. I wanted to become something other than just the mother and housewife I'd been for the last 24 years. I just wanted to do something wild and exciting at least once in my life. I did it and I liked it. It had nothing to do with any feelings for Dave. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe not, Jennifer, but it sure as hell made my feelings for you less. And don't forget the part where you said you'd probably do it again. I have no idea what I'm gonna do until I talk to a lawyer, but you can consider our marriage over. No matter how much we talk, I will never be able to trust you again." After tying a Windsor knot in my tie, I left the room and went to work. My mind wasn't on the transmission I was supposed to rebuild that day. Rodriguez Auto didn't get the focus it deserved from me. I kept thinking about 24 years of marriage going down the drain while I should have been concentrating on the Ford Explorer up on the lift. During my lunch break, I scoured the yellow pages for a lawyer near the shop, found one on Grand River Avenue, and called him. He was able to meet with me the next day after work, and I made an appointment. As I made a note in my calendar, I noticed the date. It was a week before our 24th anniversary. Well, I thought this year I won't have to spend money on a card and a gift. After work, I headed home to our place on Maple Grove Drive because, frankly, I had nowhere else to go. Going to Murphy's Tavern to drown my sorrows in alcohol didn't appeal to me, and I wasn't looking for a buddy to cry to. Jennifer usually got home before me and had dinner ready when I arrived, and that evening was no different. She had already set the table and even opened a bottle of wine. I didn't know what she was hoping for, but whatever it was, she wasn't likely to get it, given how I was feeling. I guess I should have just gone into the garage and worked on my '67 Camaro project, ignoring Jennifer and the dinner she'd prepared, but I needed to eat and it was ready. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at the table. Dinner was meatloaf, gravy, mashed potatoes, and salad. I ate in silence. I could see that Jennifer was trying to work up the courage to say something, and I hoped that she wouldn't speak before I had finished eating. I'd rather get up and leave the room on a full stomach when she started talking. This was not destined to happen. I was just putting a forkful of salad into my mouth when Jennifer said, "What if I told you that this will never happen again? Will this change anything?" I wasn't the type to talk with my mouth full, so I didn't say anything, continuing to chew the salad. She fidgeted and then said, "It was a mistake, Mike. A huge mistake that I deeply regret. In 24 years of marriage, Mike, one bad thing has happened. Can't you bring yourself to forgive me for one bad thing in our entire marriage? Is it really possible that what we've shared for 24 years should be lost, thrown into the trash, just because I made one stupid mistake?" By then I had already finished chewing the salad and swallowed it. So I said, "It wasn't just one mistake, Jennifer. The first was when you let another man be with you, and I don't even know if Dave was the first, or if yesterday was the first time you were with him. The second mistake was that you told me about it. If you'd kept your mouth shut, we wouldn't be sitting here under such tense circumstances. Your third mistake, and it was a big one, was telling me that you liked it and that you might do it more often. So the answer to your question is yes. What we've experienced in the last 24 years should be destroyed because of what you did. You've completely lost my trust, Jennifer, and a marriage can't exist without trust. At least not the marriage I want to be in." She got up from the table crying and left the room. I took a sip of wine and finished my dinner. After finishing, I cleaned up the kitchen and then went to my garage workshop to work on the Camaro's engine for a while. Nothing like getting my hands dirty with some real mechanical work to clear my head. When I went upstairs to go to bed, I saw that Jennifer had moved her things into Ashley's old room. She probably chose Ashley's room because Ashley had gotten divorced from her first husband and moved to Austin to start fresh. Our daughter had been through her own hell with a cheating spouse and was smart enough to leave when it happened. Brandon was finishing his last year of college and still used his room when he came home for breaks. So Ashley's room made sense for Jennifer to use. In the morning, I did not see Jennifer and stopped for breakfast at Big Boy on 8 Mile. When I got to the shop, I waited until 9 o'clock when the workday at Blackwood Realty began, and then I called them. When the secretary answered, I asked to speak to Dave Blackwood. When he answered the phone and said hello, I said, "This is Mike Rodriguez. Dave, Jennifer told me about your afternoon romp at the hotel, and I decided to call and let you know that I'm kicking her out and she's all yours. Besides, since we're talking about this, you should know that I'm pissed and will be looking for you. Make sure you have your health insurance up to date, because you're gonna need it." I hung up without giving him a chance to say a word. I would have gone looking for him right away, but I was in no hurry. Let him spend his time looking over his shoulder and wondering if I'm hiding in the shadows, just waiting to pounce on him. At 3 in the afternoon, I received news from the lawyer. In our state, there was no-fault divorce, so everything was divided equally. Jennifer and I made about the same amount of money. She had some good months in real estate. I had steady income from the shop, so there probably wouldn't be any alimony. The children were grown and lived independently, so child support payments weren't included. We might have some problems with our pension funds since we each had one at work, but the lawyer decided they'd offset each other. All in all, this would be a pretty straightforward divorce, if divorces could ever be considered straightforward. The lawyer then brought up the fact that we could probably sue Blackwood in an alienation of affection claim, and we might even sue Blackwood Realty if they had a company policy and procedure manual prohibiting intimate relationships between employees. I rejected it. It seemed wrong to me to hold Blackwood Realty responsible for what Dave and Jennifer did. Besides, if we did that, they'd probably both lose their jobs, and we wouldn't be able to get anything out of Blackwood, and I'd have to pay alimony to Jennifer. I told the lawyer to get the divorce papers ready and to file a lawsuit against Blackwood. It was already past 5 when I left the lawyer's office, and I decided there was no point in going back to the shop. On the way home, I thought about the division of property. We had quite a bit of equity in the house, and it was actually still 3 years away from being fully paid off. Did I want to buy out Jennifer's share and keep the house? I thought not. What would a single man do with a large 4-bedroom house in the suburbs? Not only that, but every item in the house would be a constant reminder of what life was like before Jennifer cheated on me. So I had 2 options. Jennifer could buy out my share, or we could put the house up for sale. When I got home, Jennifer had already prepared dinner, and I sat down to eat. I could see that she wanted to say something but couldn't bring herself to say it out loud. I finished eating and was getting up from the table when Jennifer said, "Dave told me that you called him today and threatened him." Not true. I didn't threaten him. I made him a promise. You'll only get yourself in trouble, Mike. You could end up in jail. Why should you care? I wouldn't interfere, and you could spend more time at the hotel with your favorite real estate mogul, provided, of course, that I leave him something to play with. Please don't do this, Mike. Please. For me. I laughed and said, "For you? I'll tell you what I did for you today. I met with a lawyer and asked him to start filing the divorce papers. You can tell your lover that you won't be able to hide behind my name much longer. I wasn't thinking about him. I don't want you to go to jail because of my stupidity. I wouldn't mind. I could sit in prison and smile, thinking about how you feel knowing that you were responsible for me being there. Imagine how excited I'd be to tell Ashley and Brandon that you put their father in jail. Don't even dare say that, Mike. Why not? I already told you that I'm going to make sure everyone knows that it wasn't because of me that this marriage was thrown into the trash. Get ready for this, Jennifer. You're going to have a lot of people asking you why you gave up on your marriage. Another thing you should think about is what you want to do with the house. I don't want it, so if you do, you'll have to buy out my share. Otherwise, it'll have to be put up for sale. Sell the house? Oh God, Mike, no. We can't do this. Then you need to figure out how to buy out my share. I left her sitting in the kitchen and went into the living room to watch TV. The next morning, I got up and left before Jennifer woke up. At the shop, I told Jimmy, my assistant mechanic, about what was going on in my life and that I might have to take time off from time to time to meet with lawyers, appear in court, and the like. He wished me luck and told me to handle whatever I needed to handle. Jennifer wasn't home when I arrived, so I warmed up some leftovers and then watched some TV. The phone rang, and I picked it up. It was my daughter, Ashley. "Dad? Mom called me and said that you were leaving her. Did she tell you why?" "She just said it was all her fault." "What's happened?" "Let's just leave everything as it is. It was her fault. I intended to call you and Brandon and tell you what happened because I didn't want people to think it was all my fault. But if she's already admitted it was her fault, that's enough. Is there any chance you two can work this out?" "No chance at all." "Why, Dad? You two seem so happy together." The key word, baby, is seemed. Sometimes what looks good on the outside isn't what's really going on inside. "How are you doing?" "I'm hanging in there. Taking it one day at a time, you know? I would come home to help, but I just started this new job here in Austin and can't get time off yet. Moving here after my divorce was the best decision I ever made. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what you need. You did the right thing when Mark showed his true colors, honey. I should have paid attention to how you handled that situation. It's okay, honey. There's nothing you can do anyway. You don't need to call Brandon. Mom called him too, and then he called me to find out what I knew about what was happening. Take care of yourself, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, honey. I'll talk to you again soon." 3 minutes later, Brandon called, and our conversation went much the same way as my conversation with Ashley. He was shocked and angry on my behalf, and I could tell he was struggling with the idea that his mother had cheated. I tried to reassure him that none of this was his fault and that both Ashley and I still loved him no matter what happened between Jennifer and me. I had just hung up when Jennifer came in late that evening. "Were you with Blackwood?" I asked sarcastically. "No, Mike. For your information, after finishing work, I spent time visiting your parents and mine. I told them about the impending divorce and said that it was all my fault. I didn't go into details. I just told them it wasn't because you did anything. Now, if you don't mind, I'll go to my room and crash. I saw tears running down her cheeks as she left the room and headed toward the stairs. A week ago, this sight would have made me rush to her, to hug her and try to console her. Now I just felt numb, like I was watching a stranger cry about something that had nothing to do with me. The next morning at work, my boss Tony called me into his office. Are you worried about the divorce? Is there any chance that this won't happen? How are you both dealing with it? There's not the slightest chance that this won't happen. Why do you ask? Well, the kids have grown up and moved away. Nothing really connects you here except that your parents and sister live here. I was just told that Garcia is retiring from our Austin location. I need someone to replace him as regional supervisor for AutoCare Express. How would you feel about living in Texas? This job is yours if you don't mind moving. Are you kidding? There are guys here with more experience than me who'd kill for this job. Perhaps, but just because they're more experienced doesn't mean they can handle the administrative side. I took a close look at everyone and you're my choice. You've got the technical skills and the people skills. You interested? Hell yeah. When should I be there? Garcia gave a month's notice starting yesterday. I'd like you to be there during his last week so he can show you the ropes. I'll begin to take action immediately. The first thing I did when I got back to my bay was call my lawyer and ask how the move would affect the divorce. It depends on whether she resists or not. If she resists, you may have to fly back and forth frequently for meetings, hearings, and the like. There shouldn't be any problems if she doesn't resist. How can she fight this? I thought that was the whole point of no-fault divorces, to get rid of all that crap. This is usually true, but only if both parties agree to the divorce. If she doesn't want a divorce, she can say that the marriage can be saved with the help of a counselor, and the court can consider that. Can't stop the divorce, but it can delay it and make it more expensive. Sometimes this is enough for the party being served to abandon the case. Well, I'm not going to stop it. What are you going to serve? Both her and Blackwood. The documents are ready. All I need is your consent. Do it this afternoon if possible. Consider it done. He called me at 3 in the afternoon and said that the documents were delivered at 2:35. When I returned home from work, Jennifer was sitting in the living room, and it was clear to me that she'd been crying. She looked up at me as I entered the room and said, "You did it. You really did it. I can't believe you threw away 24 wonderful years because of one mistake. You still don't understand, do you? It wasn't that you slept with Blackwood. It's the way you threw it in my face, looked me straight in the eyes, and told me you loved it and were probably going to do it again. Understand, Jennifer, I didn't throw away 24 good years. You did. You need to decide what you want to do as far as the house is concerned, because in 2 weeks, I won't be here." I left the room, went to the kitchen, and took out leftover food from the refrigerator. After eating, I went to my garage and called Ashley in Austin. After exchanging greetings, I said, "I don't know if this is good news or not, but I'm going to move to Austin. This'll be in about 2 weeks. You and Mom. Just me. Today I filed divorce papers. I need you to do me a favor. Anything, Dad. You know that. Look at apartments and condos within a reasonable distance from where I'll be working, and find me a hotel or motel in the same area where I can stay when I first get there." "Not happening, Dad. You're going to stay with me. There's no way I'm letting you stay in a motel. Won't this be awkward? I mean, you've got your own life there." "Dad, I've got a 2-bedroom apartment and honestly, I could use the company. It gets lonely here sometimes, especially after everything I went through with Mark. Having you around would actually be great. If you're sure." "I'm completely sure. I'm looking forward to seeing you." "Me too, baby. I'll call you as soon as everything's cleared up." The next morning when I came downstairs, Jennifer was already up and sitting at the kitchen table. "Good morning," she said. I said nothing, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "I decided that I don't need this house if I don't have you to share it with. I'll call the realtor this morning and get everything sorted out." "It doesn't have to be this way, Mike." "Sorry, Jennifer. But it does." I poured coffee into a travel mug and headed to work. I called the real estate agent from the shop and agreed to meet him at the house at 1 in the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, the process was already in full swing. On the way home, I stopped at a U-Haul store and bought a few boxes to start packing my things. When I got home, Jennifer wasn't there, but there was a note on the kitchen table saying she'd be staying with her sister for the next couple of days. I spent the evening packing and moving boxes into the garage. Before going to bed, all that remained was to pack the things from my workshop and the clothes I'd need in the next 2 weeks. The next day, my lawyer called me and said, "I heard from Blackwood. He says we're being stupid because we have no evidence. All we have is what your wife told you, and he said he'd deny it. I hate to admit it, but he's right. Don't stop the lawsuit. I'll see if we can find anything that might be useful." "How can you do this?" "I don't know. Let me think about this." I spent the next 2 days doing what I needed to do to prepare for the move. Jennifer was still visiting her sister, so when I got home from work, I called her sister and asked to talk to Jennifer. When she answered the phone, I told her we needed to talk and asked her to come home so we could sit at the kitchen table and discuss things. "I'll come over, but I won't stay." She arrived at 7 and I made coffee. We sat down at the table and I told her about my move to Austin. I gave her the real estate agent's card and told her that she'd have to handle the sale, and I'd come back for the closing when the house sold. I told her that I'd stay with Ashley until I found a place to live and that she could contact me there. Then I asked her the $64,000 question. "Why, Jennifer? Why did you cheat on me and with Dave Blackwood?" "I told you, Mike. It just happened. It was spontaneous." "I don't understand, Jennifer. How could this happen so suddenly?" "I don't want to talk about it, Mike. It was a stupid thing to do, and it cost me you." "You may not want to talk about this, Jennifer, but I really need to know. Was I such a bad husband that you could do this to me? Was I not good enough for you?" "Nothing like that, Mike. I can't explain how I felt when this happened. Dave was supposed to just invite me to lunch. When he made a move on me, which was a complete surprise since he'd never shown any real interest in me before, he asked me if I'd ever cheated on you, and I said no. I asked him why he asked this question. He told me that he'd always had a thing for me, and since we were having lunch at the hotel restaurant and had rooms upstairs, he decided to give it a try. If I cheated on you before, I might have done it again. I think I surprised him when I asked him to pay the bill and get us a room. I know it doesn't make sense to you, but like I said, I wanted to be something other than just a wife and mother, at least once in my life. I just wanted to do something exciting and dangerous, and Dave reaching out to me gave me the chance. But why exactly with Blackwood? It just so happened that he was in the right place at the right time, and it was he who made the move. Why did you tell me you liked it and you were going to do it again? Was Blackwood such a good lover? No, it was no better with Dave. I said I'd probably do it again because I wanted more excitement. Telling you about Dave and me was another stupid thing on my part. By the way, I'm confused. On the one hand, it was the betrayal that made me so angry, but it was the feeling of guilt for the betrayal that made me confess. When I confessed, I thought that we'd have a conversation like we're having now, and I could convince you that my fling outside of marriage wouldn't harm us. It would only be intimate with Dave and you, and I'd still have the love we'd shared for 24 years. I was sure that you'd understand how much I love you and that you'd allow me to get rid of this wild and reckless feeling. And that would let you know Dave wasn't that good. It was because of the sneaking around that everything was so exciting, and after a couple of times, I would have gotten bored with it. Now I know that I should have kept my mouth shut and let the relationship with Dave resolve itself naturally. If I'd kept my mouth shut, you'd still be with me because you'd never know. Does this conversation mean you might change your mind? No way, Jennifer. I already told you that. But this whole conversation helped me understand things better. Now I know that nothing I did or didn't do caused you to do this, and knowing that will help me sleep better. As I listened to her explain herself, I felt something I hadn't expected. Instead of the anger that had been burning in my chest for weeks, I felt nothing. Her words washed over me like water off a duck's back. She was telling me about her guilt, her confusion, her need for excitement, but all I could think was how none of it mattered anymore. She'd made her choice and I'd made mine. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the person I'd married 24 years ago. That woman was gone, and I was finally ready to let her go. Jennifer left, and I stood up and turned off the tape recorder I'd hidden on the kitchen table. The next day, after making a couple of copies of the recording, I stopped by the lawyer's office and gave him a copy. I intended to give a copy to Blackwood's wife Janet, but I'd hold off on handing it over until after the lawsuit was filed. The next week was a busy one as I brought my replacement up to speed and got everything ready for the move. The house was put up for sale, and we'd already had 2 couples come to see it. Hopefully, this was a good sign as the sale progressed. On my last Friday, the shop crew threw me a going-away party at Murphy's Tavern, the bar just down the street from Rodriguez Auto. The next afternoon, I was in a U-Haul truck heading to Austin. An hour later, I called Ashley and found out how to get to her apartment. She must have been watching from the window because she came running out to meet me as I pulled up and parked. She gave me a big hug and then helped me unhook the car from the trailer I was pulling. We then drove to the storage facility where I moved the items from the truck into the rented space. From there, we went to the local U-Haul dealer to drop off the truck and trailer, and then headed back to Ashley's place. "On your first night here, we'll go out to dinner," Ashley said. "And then I'll show you around the area. I think you're gonna like it here, Dad. Austin's got a good vibe, and there's always something going on." "Sounds good, honey. How are you really doing? I mean, with everything you've been through with Mark and all." "I'm doing okay, Dad. Better than okay, actually. Getting away from all that drama was the best thing I could have done. Sometimes you need a complete change of scenery to remember who you are. You know?" "Yeah. I think I'm starting to understand that." We went out and enjoyed dinner, and then Ashley took me to explore the area. We ended up at a place called the Blue Moon. It was a pretty nice place with a good live band. Ashley seemed to know some people there, and before we could even sit down, a few folks came over to say hello. I was introduced to a few ladies, and Ashley made it clear that I was single and available. "Why'd you do that?" I asked. "If you're gonna hang out with me, Dad, you can't sit in the corner all night. I dance with some of the guys here, and it wouldn't be right to leave you sitting at the table alone. Don't worry, you won't have to wonder what to do. The women here are pretty forward, and they'll come to you." "I don't know, honey. It's really not my scene." "Maybe not yet, but this place might be just what you need right now. Help you remember that you're still an attractive, interesting man with a lot to offer." As if on cue, a pretty blonde approached the table and said, "Mind if I ask your dad to dance?" Ashley laughed and said to me, "See what I mean?" For the rest of the evening, I danced with 5 different women, and 2 of them gave me their phone numbers and asked me to call them. I have to admit that after what Jennifer did to me, it was a huge boost to my ego. I know she said it wasn't about me, but deep down, I'd had doubts. In the end, she'd chosen another man over me, and that had to mean something, right? But here I was, and these women seemed to find me attractive and interesting. Maybe Jennifer's problem was Jennifer, not me. On the way home, I asked Ashley if she'd found any suitable apartments for me, and she replied that she'd found a few, but I wouldn't need them because I'd be staying with her. "I don't think this'll work long-term, honey." "Why not?" "I saw you talking to some of those guys tonight, and I wouldn't want to interfere with your social life. Plus, you're a grown woman who needs her space." "Don't be silly, Daddy. I'm not ready for anything serious yet, and honestly, having you here makes me feel safer. Austin's a great city, but it's still a big city. Besides, we're both starting over in our own ways. Maybe we can help each other figure things out." "If you're sure." "I'm positive. Now stop worrying about it and just focus on settling in. Tomorrow's a new day, and you've got a whole new life to build." As I lay in the unfamiliar bed in Ashley's spare room that night, I thought about how much my life had changed in just a few weeks. A month ago, I was a married man with a routine, a house, and what I thought was a solid future. Now I was divorced, living in a new state, starting a new job, and for the first time in 24 years, I had no idea what came next. But instead of that uncertainty scaring me, I found it almost liberating. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I was completely free to make my own choices without having to consider what Jennifer wanted or needed. I could eat what I wanted, watch what I wanted, go where I wanted, and if I met someone interesting, I could pursue that without guilt or obligation. Jennifer had taken something away from me, my trust, my marriage, my sense of security. But maybe, without meaning to, she'd also given me something, my freedom. And as I drifted off to sleep in my new city, in my new life, I realized that I was actually looking forward to finding out what I'd do with it. The next week was very busy as I settled into my new job at AutoCare Express and met the team who'd be working under me. We had 5 service bays, a parts department, and a small office crew. Tony must have told Garcia something about my situation, and Garcia filled in the regional manager. There were 2 single women in the office, the parts coordinator and the receptionist, and I noticed that both of them showed some interest, but I wasn't going to mess around at work. Last thing I needed was workplace drama on top of everything else. I went back to the Blue Moon with Ashley on Friday night, and I gotta admit I had a great time. Anna, one of the girls who'd given me her number, joined us at the table and asked why I didn't call her. I told her I was still getting settled into my new job and getting used to the area. Ashley practically had to drag me here tonight. Well, you're here now, and we'll pretend that you called me and we agreed to meet here. Ashley laughed and said, "You're on your own, Dad. If I were you, I'd just go with it." I followed her advice and spent a real pleasant evening with Anna. When the last call rang, Ashley handed me the keys to her car and said, "Don't wait up for me. Tomorrow's Saturday, and I don't have anything planned, so we probably won't see each other until noon." As Ashley left with one of the guys she'd been dancing with, Anna said, "I think she's telling you that you won't be interrupted if you catch my drift." I understood perfectly well what she was getting at, and it caused a small war in my head. You can't, I thought. You're still technically married. Sounds like you're separated and going through a divorce, so you're basically free. I don't know why I was being so hesitant. My own daughter was encouraging me, and hell, Jennifer had already broken our marriage vows. In the end, the phrase "nobody's waiting up for you" tipped the scales in Anna's favor. Man, was I glad it worked out that way. Over pancakes and bacon at breakfast, Anna made it clear to me that she wasn't looking for anything serious. I don't have the personality to settle down with just one person. I tried marriage once, but it didn't work out. On the other hand, I can be a great friend with benefits. If last night was any indication, I'd say the benefits are definitely worth it. Can I put in an application? Actually, you already interviewed for the position last night, and you got the job. I took her home and went back to Ashley's. When I walked in, she was there making coffee and smiled at me. Looking up with a questioning expression, she made an okay sign with her thumb and forefinger, and I smiled back and said, "More than okay." For the next 2 months, I saw Anna 2 or 3 times a week, and then one Sunday morning she told me that our last night together was coming up. She'd gotten a promotion that required her to move to Atlanta. This was a real disappointment for me. I'd gotten comfortable with our arrangement and hoped it would last a lot longer. Ashley told me that even though I'd miss Anna, I had plenty of options waiting. Anna told all the girls how great you are, and if I were a betting woman, I'd put money on you having a new girlfriend by the end of the week. She was right. The following Friday, we'd barely sat down at our usual table in the Blue Moon when women started coming up to me asking me to dance. One of them, a hot brunette named Melissa, her friends called her Mel, asked me to dance 4 times. The last time was for the final dance of the evening. It was nights in white satin, and while we were slowly moving around the floor, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You want to come home with me tonight?" Ashley had left an hour earlier and told me not to expect her until noon, so I told Mel yes. I gotta be home before 9 to take care of my mother. When I asked, she explained that she still lived at home with her parents, and her mother was disabled and needed constant care. How about next Friday night? Absolutely. For the next 2 months, Mel became my regular Friday night companion. I could only see her on Thursdays and Fridays because she worked retail during the week, and those were her days off. One Monday evening toward the end of our 2nd month together, my arrangement with Mel suddenly came to a screeching halt. I left the AutoCare office and headed to my car in the parking lot. When I got close, I saw a big guy leaning against it. He straightened up as I approached and said, "Perfect timing. Do we know each other?" "No, but you're gonna wish you'd never met me." What's all this about? I'm gonna beat the hell out of you. I looked him up and down and said, maybe that won't be as easy as you think. Mind telling me why you want to try? Because you've been screwing my wife, that's why. I'm not messing around with anybody's wife. You denying that you're sleeping with Mel? Who the hell is Mel talking about? She's not married. What the hell? She's not married? She's been married to me for 10 years. If you're telling the truth and she is married, I obviously didn't know about it. She doesn't wear a ring, and nobody at the Blue Moon ever mentioned she was married. But I'll tell you this, you kick her out and I'll take her in. Why the hell would you do something that stupid? If she cheats on me, she'll cheat on you too. Did you ever ask her why she doesn't wear a wedding ring? I found out about you, so now I gotta find out why she's been lying. All I know is that if I did take her in, I sure as hell wouldn't give her reasons to cheat. But I'll tell you this, now that I know she's married, I'll stay away from her until you two work things out. But I got a question for you. How can she leave home every Friday and Saturday night and disappear until morning without you knowing about it? I drive truck and I'm gone from Thursday to Sunday. He glared at me like he was getting ready to throw a punch, but to my surprise, he turned and walked away. I spent the next week thinking about who might replace Mel. On Friday, I went to the Blue Moon, and about half an hour after I got there, Mel came in, spotted me and walked over. She sat down and said, I heard you met Roy. If Roy's your husband, then yeah, we met. Is this gonna stop us from seeing each other? Depends on what happens. I told him I'd stay away from you until he decides what to do. Has he thrown you out yet? No, and he won't because he loves me. Then we can't see each other anymore. Why not? Because you're married, and if I'd known that from the start, I never would have gotten involved with you. I won't knowingly do to another man what my wife and her boss did to me. Look, I'm just getting from you what Roy won't give me. I love the guy, but I need more than what he provides. You and I have something good going, lover. Let's not mess it up. Sorry, Mel. But if Roy doesn't tell me himself that he's kicked you out, we're done. She stared at me for a few seconds, then got up and moved to another table. 5 minutes later, some guy was sitting next to her. I danced with several other women that night, but didn't try to connect with any of them. About an hour before closing, the guy sitting with Mel went to the restroom, and she came over to me. Last chance, she said. Sorry, Mel, but you know where I stand. Your loss, she said and went back to her table. When the guy came back, they left together. That night changed everything, but not my relationship with Mel. Around 4 in the morning, I was woken up by loud noises coming through the wall between Ashley's bedroom and mine. It took me about half an hour to fall back asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, my first thought was that I needed to find my own place. Ashley was making breakfast when I walked into the kitchen. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, she smiled at me and asked if I'd slept well. I decided she didn't need to know that her late-night activities had woken me up, so I just told her I'd slept like a baby. It was Saturday, and I spent most of the day apartment hunting. I found a decent 2-bedroom place and filled out the application. When I got back to Ashley's, she said, Mom called. You need to call her back. What for? She's got a buyer for the house, and she needs you to send power of attorney papers. Tell her I'll mail them. Call her Dad. It won't kill you to talk to her. I hadn't spoken to Jennifer since I'd moved to Austin, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear her voice. Having no contact with her was helping me forget what she'd done. I loved her. Damn it, I still loved her and thought about her all the time. I even thought about her when I was with Anna and Mel. No, I really didn't want to hear her voice, but Ashley was being persistent, and she brought me the phone and said, just call her. I should have said no and walked away, but I didn't. I dialed our old number back in Detroit. It rang 4 times, and then, hello. Hello, Jennifer. Ashley said you called. How are you, Mike? I'm doing fine, Jennifer. What's this about the house? I miss you, Mike. I don't know where it came from. God knows I didn't want to say it, but I miss you too. Jennifer slipped out before I could stop it. Oh my God, Mike, do you really mean that? The moment those words left my mouth, I regretted them. Not because they weren't true, they were but because they opened a door I'd been trying to keep closed. Yeah, I missed her. I missed the woman I thought she was, the life I thought we had, the future I thought we were building together. But that woman didn't exist anymore, and that life had been built on a lie. What about the house, Jennifer? There was a short silence. Then she said, "We've got a buyer. I've been waiting for their financing to come through. Closing is scheduled for the 12th at 2 o'clock. Can you come back?" "I don't know. That's only 6 days away. Not much notice, but I'll see what I can work out and call you back." "I hope you can make it." "We'll see, Jennifer. I'll call you tomorrow." When I hung up, I wondered why I didn't just tell her to have her father or brother handle it. Ashley saw the look on my face and asked, "What's wrong, Dad? What are you thinking about?" I shrugged and said, "Trying to decide whether to go back or just send the power of attorney." "Why don't you want to go back?" "Just hearing your mother's voice messes with my head. So how am I going to handle seeing her face to face? I don't know if I can do that." "When are you going to start being honest with yourself, Dad?" "What do you mean?" "I saw your face when you were talking to Mom. You miss her, don't you?" "I don't know what happened between you two besides the fact that you got hurt bad. But not being with her is eating you up." "I haven't been entirely honest with you, Dad. Mom doesn't call me every week like I said before, but she did call me a few times right after you left. She was a mess, Dad. Crying, asking if you were okay, if you were eating right, if you seemed happy. She knows she screwed up, and she's paying for it. Since we're talking about what I need to do, you should know I'm looking for my own place." "Why?" "Well, what we've got works pretty well, but it's time for both of us to have our own space." I saw understanding dawn on her face. She blushed and said, "I need to check on something in the kitchen," and hurried out of the room. After a quiet dinner, Ashley asked, "You going to the Blue Moon tonight?" "Nah. I think I'll just watch some TV. The ladies will be disappointed. I know a couple who are really hoping to get your attention." "Your words don't make sense, kiddo. On one hand, you're telling me to go back to your mom, and on the other hand, you're trying to hook me up with your friends at the Blue Moon." "That's not what I'm saying. I don't even know if it's possible for you and Mom to work things out. I just think you need to figure out what you really want." "I'm staying home tonight anyway. I need to pack. I found a place, and I'm just waiting for them to approve my application." On Monday, I got a call at work saying I was approved, so I started moving that same evening. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment planning to turn the second bedroom into a home office. Ashley insisted on helping me move, and while I was bringing stuff in, she kept making comments like, "You need better curtains for this room?" and, "Ugh, that carpet color is awful. You should ask them to replace it." She helped me set up the kitchen and then went home, leaving me to spend my first night in my own place. The next day, I had to make a decision. Should I go back for the closing or just fax the power of attorney? I wrestled with it and finally decided to go back. I picked up the phone and called. "Hello, it's me. I've decided to come back for the closing instead of mailing the power of attorney." "Where's the closing?" "Conference room at First Bank on Woodward Avenue at 2 o'clock. I'll get the spare room ready for you." "I don't think that's smart. I'll stay at a hotel downtown." "Don't be ridiculous, Mike. No point in spending money on a hotel when you've got a perfectly good house to stay in." "I'll think about it. See you at the bank." I'd been thinking a lot since my conversation with Ashley, and even more during the flight back to Detroit. Jennifer did what she did for the same reason Mel cheated on Roy. I couldn't remember ever being with Jennifer the way I'd been with Anna and Melissa. Jennifer said she did what she did not because I was lacking, but because she wanted to do something wild and exciting for once in her life. Was that a lie to spare my feelings? Was there something about me that drove her to Blackwood? I figured I'd never really know the truth. When I got to the bank, Jennifer was already in the conference room. She smiled when I walked in, stood up, and started toward me. I quickly moved behind the table that separated us, and her smile faded a bit. I noticed that she looked fantastic, and it was obvious she'd dressed up for me. She was wearing my favorite blue dress and her best heels, and her hair was styled just the way I used to like it. Before Jennifer could say anything, other people entered the room, and we got down to business. When it was all over, I had a check in my pocket for $87,362.36. As we left the room, Jennifer asked, "Will you stay? You don't have to leave until tomorrow." "No, I've got some things to take care of. Then I'm catching a late flight back." I saw disappointment cross her face, and she asked, "Will you ever forgive me, Mike?" "I don't know, Jennifer. You hurt me real bad. Maybe time will help, but I don't know. I gotta go." "Goodbye, Jennifer." She stood there watching me leave. It was hard to walk away, and I'll admit I wanted to take her in my arms. The voice in my head said, "Come on, Mike." She made a mistake and admitted it. You're still married to her, but you've been with Anna and Mel. One balances out the other. You want her, and you know it. It was hard to ignore that voice, but I forced myself to keep walking. The difference was, Jennifer's betrayal came first, and it came with the cruel honesty of telling me she enjoyed it and planned to do it again. What I'd done since then was just trying to put my life back together. At 5 o'clock, I parked down the block from Blackwood Realty. When Dave came out and got in his car, I followed him. He pulled into O'Malley's bar parking lot, and I pulled in right behind him. I found a spot between his car and the entrance, got out, and waited. When he headed toward his car, I stepped in front of him, smiled, and said, "Hey there, Dave. Long time no see." I hit him hard and got back in my car and drove away. I drove straight to 2847 Elmwood Street and rang the doorbell. When Janet Blackwood opened the door, I handed her a copy of the tape of my conversation with Jennifer and said, "I don't want to ruin your evening, Janet, but you need to hear what's on this recording. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You don't deserve it." Then I turned and walked away. 2 hours later, I was on a plane back to Austin. The next morning, I called my lawyer and asked him to drop the lawsuit against Blackwood. After hearing what he told you, I decided to give his wife the tape and let her handle it. Smart move, since we probably wouldn't have one anyway. Courts have been pretty lenient on this type of claim lately. The final divorce hearing is next Friday, and you don't have to be there. 60 days after that, you'll be a free man. For some reason, that news didn't make me happy. I deposited the house check and made a mental note to start looking at condos in a few months. I'd signed a 6-month lease on my apartment, so I was stuck there for now, but when the lease was up, I'd need something more permanent. The week flew by, and on Friday evening, I went to the Blue Moon. I danced with several women but didn't feel like pursuing anything with any of them. Knowing that Mel was married had left a bad taste in my mouth about the whole dating scene. I decided to call it an early night and went home around 10. On Saturday night, I was back at the Blue Moon. About 20 minutes after I sat down, Ashley came in and joined me. Then her friends showed up, and we had to push a couple of tables together to make room for everyone. What I'd always noticed about the Blue Moon was that most of the women who came there were confident and went after what they wanted. I got asked to dance way more often than I did the asking. There were 3 women at the table besides Ashley, and they all invited me to dance. I danced a couple of times with each of them, and around 11 I found myself dancing with Ruby. Anna had once told me that if I ever got a chance with Ruby, I'd be crazy not to take it. How about it, Mike? Do I have a shot? I'd be an idiot to say no. Any reason we can't leave right now? Can't think of any. Your place or mine? Mine. I'm more comfortable there, at least to start. For the next 2 months, Ruby and I met 2 or 3 times a week. Our relationship was temporary, and we both knew it. One night, Ruby broke the news. "This is our last time together, lover. I'm getting too attached to you." I was disappointed because I'd gotten real comfortable with Ruby. While I was seeing Ruby, Mel's situation with Roy got ugly. Roy confronted Mel's new boyfriend, got arrested for assault, and Mel not only refused to bail him out but filed divorce papers while he was in jail. 2 weeks after Ruby called it quits, Mel called me. "You said you wouldn't see me until Roy and I split up. Can we get together Friday? You sure about this? What about the other guys you've been seeing? They don't measure up. Yes or no?" Was I going to turn down an offer like that? "You want me to pick you up around 7? And be ready for the possibility that we might not leave my place all weekend." Sounds perfect. On Monday, my lawyer called with news that the divorce was final. "I'm mailing the papers and you should get them Thursday. You planning to come back and celebrate? Not yet, but maybe by the end of the month. After I hung up, I realized I had nothing to celebrate. All I felt was a sense of loss. The next couple of months were filled with work, condo hunting, and Roy's sentencing. Roy got convicted of assault and served 9 months in county lockup. While Mel was getting her divorce finalized, she started talking about our future together, and it was obvious she was hoping I'd propose. I didn't say anything, but I knew it wasn't gonna happen. She'd openly cheated on Roy with multiple guys. I'd never marry her, and sooner or later I'd have to tell her. It happened sooner than I expected, and I didn't have to say a word. It was more like a show than anything else. It was Saturday night, and Mel and I were at the Blue Moon. We were on the dance floor when I happened to look toward the entrance. Ashley walked in, and she wasn't alone. Jennifer was with her. To say Jennifer looked incredible would be putting it mildly. I must have tensed up because Mel felt it and asked if something was wrong. I told her no, that I just felt a sudden chill. We were sitting at our usual spot, a couple of tables pushed together with the regular crowd, and naturally Ashley headed over there. By the time the band finished the song Mel and I had been dancing to and announced they were taking a break, Ashley and Jennifer were already at the table. Over Mel's shoulder, I watched Ashley introduce Jennifer to everyone at the table, and she must have said she was my ex-wife because I caught several quick glances in my direction. Mel and I walked back to the table and Jennifer saw me coming. Her face lit up with a big smile that quickly faded when she realized the woman next to me was actually with me. We sat down, and Jennifer said, "Hello, Mike. How have you been?" "I'm doing well, Jennifer. Things have been different but good. How about you?" "I'm fine. Are you gonna introduce me to your friend?" "Sure. Mel, this is Jennifer." "Jennifer. This is Melissa, but everyone calls her Mel." "Come on, Mike. Surely you can do better than that." "Fine. Mel, this is Jennifer, my ex-wife." "Jennifer. This is Mel, my girlfriend." Mel laughed and said, "Well done. Maybe we should get together sometime and swap stories." I could tell by the look on Jennifer's face that hell would freeze over before that happened. There was the usual chatter around the table, and Jennifer carefully avoided looking in Mel's direction. When the band came back and started their next set, I grabbed Ashley's hand and pulled her onto the dance floor. "What the hell is going on, Ashley? Mom asked if she could visit now that you've got your own place." "I'm not gonna tell my mother no." "Don't you think maybe I should have gotten a heads up before you brought her here?" "Maybe, but she wanted to surprise you." "Mission accomplished." "Damn it, Ashley. How could you do this to me?" "It wasn't hard, Dad. I love both my parents, and I can see that you still love each other. Don't even try to deny it. I saw your face light up when you first spotted her, and God knows she's been miserable without you. If I can do anything to get you two back together, I'm gonna do it. Tonight was just step one. You're meddling in things that aren't your business, Ashley." "I know, but like I said, I love you both, and I want you both to be happy. That little tramp doesn't stand a chance." "We'll see about that," she said. When the song ended and we headed back to the table, I saw some guy ask Jennifer to dance. They went out on the floor as Ashley and I sat down. Jennifer and her partner stayed out there for 3 songs, and halfway through the third one, I felt a sharp elbow in my ribs. I turned to see Mel glaring at me. "You're supposed to be here with me, not staring at your ex-wife." "What are you talking about? You haven't taken your eyes off her since she got on that dance floor. And judging by the look on your face, you want to go out there and deck the guy she's dancing with." She was right. I did want to tell him to keep his hands to himself. But Jennifer wasn't my wife anymore. She'd made her choice and I'd made mine. "Call me when you figure out what you really want," Mel said, standing up. "Right now it's pretty obvious where your heart is." She left and I stayed in my seat. On the dance floor, I could see the guy getting a little too friendly with Jennifer, putting his hands where they didn't belong. I felt a surge of anger and started to get up, but then I stopped myself. I wasn't gonna be that guy. The guy who couldn't let go, who made scenes in public, who let his emotions control him. Jennifer had made her choice 2 years ago when she decided Dave Blackwood was more exciting than her husband. She'd thrown away 24 years of marriage for an afternoon of thrills. That was on her, not me. Instead of confronting the guy, I finished my beer, got up, and walked to the bar. I ordered another beer and stayed there for the rest of the night, occasionally glancing at Jennifer's table but never making a move to go over there. When last call came, I saw Jennifer looking around, probably for me, but I kept my back turned. I finished my drink, paid my tab, and left through the side exit. The next morning, Ashley was making breakfast when I came downstairs. Quite a performance last night, Dad. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. Mom was looking for you when the place closed. Well, I left early. Had things to do today. Dad, I need to apologize about last night. I thought seeing each other might help somehow, but I can see it just made things worse. Ashley, honey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but some things can't be fixed. Your mom and I are finished. What she did, I can't get past it. But Dad, you still love her. Anyone could see that. Maybe I do, but love isn't enough. Trust is gone. And without trust, there's nothing. Your mother killed our marriage the day she decided to cheat on me and then brag about how much she enjoyed it. That's not something you come back from. I'm sorry, Daddy. I won't interfere again. It's okay, sweetheart. I know you meant well. But promise me, no more surprises like that. I promise. I hugged my daughter and left for work. That afternoon, I called a realtor and started seriously looking at condos. It was time to build my own life, completely separate from the past. By the way, Ashley said as I was getting ready to leave, Mom's flying back to Detroit this afternoon. She said to tell you goodbye. Okay. She also asked me to give you this. Ashley handed me an envelope with my name written on it in Jennifer's handwriting. I looked at it for a moment, then handed it back to her. You can throw that away. Dad, don't you want to know what it says? No, I don't. Whatever she has to say, she had 24 years to say it. The time for talking is over. Ashley looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just nodded and put the envelope in her purse. Over the next few months, I settled into a routine. I bought a nice 2-bedroom condo, furnished it exactly how I wanted, and continued seeing various women I met at the Blue Moon. Nothing serious, I made that clear from the start. I wasn't looking to get married again, and I wasn't looking for anyone to complete me. I was complete on my own. Ashley and I grew closer, and she never mentioned Jennifer again, though I knew they still talked. I was building a new life, one where I was in control, where I couldn't get hurt the way I'd been hurt before. Sometimes, late at night in my new place, I'd think about Jennifer and wonder what might have been. But those moments passed quickly. I'd learned to live with my choices, and more importantly, I'd learned to live for myself. The past was the past, and I was finally, truly moving forward. I had a good job, a nice place to live, a daughter who loved me, and the freedom to make my own choices without having to worry about someone else's needs or wants. Jennifer had shown me who she really was that morning at breakfast when she casually told me about her affair. Now I was showing myself who I could become. A man who didn't need anyone else to be happy. A man who could walk away from the wrong situation without looking back. A man who valued himself enough to demand better. And for the first time in years, I was genuinely content with the man I saw in the mirror. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.